Hey, this is Devin
and Aaron
from Cavity Colors, and you're listening to Drop the Mic.
I'm Charlie Brunson. I am Britain's most violent prisoner.
Prison was honestly brilliant. I liked it personally. Oh, fuck that. I loved it. It was exciting. It was on the edge. It was madness at its very best. The problem is, once you get comfortable, or sometimes even before, they ghost you again and again, moving you from prison to prison to prison. And I fucking hate that. Parkhurst, God bless that place. The accommodation was more than worthy of my royal self. Your own bed, toilet, a sink. The food was of exceptional standard. Yes, Parkhurst was a corker. And whole prison, well, what can I say? Well worth a visit. Scrubs, not my favourite place to visit, but the staff are ready to make your stay as memorable as possible. We had a laugh. How we laugh.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Drop the Mic. This week we unpack the filmography of writer-director Nicolas Winding Refn with our special guest and friend, Kristian Perez. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
So before we kind of sail off into this crazy content, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So again, my name's Kristian. I work at the Digital Gym Cinema in North Park, a small nonprofit art house theater. If you haven't been there, please go check it out and see what we have showing up in the coming months. We've got some cool stuff planned. I love working there. We get to show a lot of cool films. It's a single screen theater. We have a shop. We sell movie soundtracks, other movie paraphernalia, and we're just in a really cool spot. So I'm there full time, but on the side I like to make films myself, whether they're my own or with some of my friends who are fresh out of film school, I should say. But yeah, I do a lot of stuff, so come by and chat.
For sure. Thank you. You just wrapped up a film, right?
Yeah, I did actually.
You should plug that.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. It's my friend's. It's my friend's film. His name is Nate. He wrote and directed it. Okay. I just shot the film with him this last weekend, and we wrapped it. He's editing it now. It's called Tenderfoot, and it's a coming-of-age Scouts drama.
Ooh, okay.
So keep an eye out. It should be done hopefully in the next 2 weeks.
Is it a feature length or a short?
Short, definitely. Okay. Yeah.
I was like, wow, that was quick.
Yeah, no, that'd take a long time. But yeah, it should be done. We're going to be submitting it to film festivals locally and really just all over, anywhere we can afford to submit it to.
Very nice.
So keep an eye out, and if we have a premiere here in San Diego.
So were you the DP on it?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I saw some of those pictures, man. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. It was fun. that was like my first official project, I would say. Like shooting it, doing the whole thing in pre-production, storyboarding. It's a lot of work. It's fun. It's rewarding.
I went to film school for a while as well, so
yeah.
I know all about that.
yeah. It's cool. He's really passionate too. Nate's a really good guy. He wrote something really special to him, and to see that passion translate is really a unique experience. It's fun.
For sure, man.
It's cool.
All right, ready to kind of dive into this?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, Nicolas Winding Refn is a Danish writer/director who's come to be known for his blood-soaked art house aesthetic. Nicolas was born in Denmark to a couple who also were heavily involved in the film industry. And when his mom and dad split up, he then moved to New York for a time. Being dyslexic, he turned to the world of film. As a child, specifically the horror genre, I know he's very fond of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is pretty interesting. He later moved back to Denmark after being expelled from an acting school for throwing a chair into a wall. This is where he self-produced and starred in a short film called Pusher. After getting airplay on cable television, he was approached to make a small-budget extended version of his film. But by this time, he had to make a choice between going back to school or going guerrilla and shooting his first feature length. Of course, we all know how that panned out. Enter Pusher, which is a low-budget mockumentary-style flick from 1996, set in Copenhagen and starring a very young Mads Mikkelsen. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I would say so.
The film showcased a man trying to earn by being a drug runner. When he's asked to deliver heroin and is later intercepted by the cops, he then has to pay back the money he's lost by collecting old debts. So, let me ask you, what do you think of Pusher, the original?
The original Pusher is really strong in this. Actually, let me rephrase that. So, it's coming from the mid-90s, where we've had plenty of like films that have dealt with similar topics. It's a very unique perspective. It could have been just really bland.
Yes.
And I think as like a first feature, it's really solid. Like, it's definitely a heavy film to watch, as most of his films are.
Yeah.
It's just you can kind of see where he's at now, where that comes from. You know, even with a small budget, where he can't afford the lighting, and it's really cool actually to see. If you watch Pusher now, the original Pusher, and you watch his latest film, Neon Demon, how far those are from each other in the timeline.
Yes.
But how similar they are in structure, in character work. You know, he's got a unique sense of style. I'm trying not to break into 2 and 3 yet.
Yeah.
But it's a really solid first feature. And if you we'll go into some of the background info on the production company that he had in Denmark before he came to the States and stuff like that. But you really get a good sense of where he's coming from after watching his first film.
I always thought it was interesting so this one basically is all about the drug runner, and then from his perspective, and then the second one is from the perspective of his best friend, right? Yeah. And then it moves on to the third with the kingpin,
right,
or whatever.
Right.
So it was I always thought that was weird. I think this was I remember going to, when rental places were around and seeing that crazy artwork all over. And it always enticed me, and I had no idea that I would fall in love with this director so much later on in life. But it is very interesting to see where, like, his roots and how you can tell that he's just, like, totally engulfed in, and has never really let it go, like the violence and the grittiness and his, he's very dedicated to portraying, like, the element of misfits, or people who don't really, they have trouble integrating into society regularly, from, like, the gangster perspective and certain things. So it's really cool to see somebody who's kind of would go on to kind of break out into, at least somewhat, into the mainstream. And keep his aesthetic, because there's not too many that have really been able to do that and kind of not ventured off into something else. You know what I mean? As far as the genre, besides Tarantino or the obvious people.
I 100% agree with that. Especially, it's kind of like with him, getting kicked out of film school, being an advocate of just like do it your way, that kind of attitude. And, it's really, for me, as somebody who wants to be a filmmaker as well, it's like a really positive thing to think about. Like, yeah, of course you want to do something your way. You won't always get to. Mm-hmm. There are sacrifices you have to make, especially when, because it just comes down to money. Who's giving you the money and who's in charge of the money. But when I think about that, and even his second film, which is Bleeder.
Yes.
Both of those films they kind of have the same cast pretty much, and it's, to me, like, Bleeder is so interesting on its own because it's not connected to anything else. It's kind of just like the one-off in a way, because he did have the Pusher trilogy in mind. I would assume he did, at least in the 90s, and but he didn't want to, like, complete it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And so jumping from Pusher to Bleeder, it's super interesting to see that kind of jump, even though they are similar. I think he kind of fleshes out his character work a bit more in Bleeder. This time we're not following, I think Kim is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the lead in Pusher, we're following more Mads in Bleeder, as a kind of sympathetic film buff, who, of course, as a character is flawed. Most of his characters are. I would say there's not one good person in any of his films, but there's something that you can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
There's some certain aspects of these characters that you could relate to.
He's really good at, like, kind of humanizing villains.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're like, oh, well.
Strongest suit for sure. Yeah. But Bleeder is a little bit harder to see. When I sought out Bleeder, I had to, like, buy, like, a Region B DVD of it.
Yeah.
Just because it had the English subtitles on it. And, when I saw it, I was like, this is rough. This is really, especially in the climax of that movie, it's like, oh, man, I don't think I could show this to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, if you love his work, it's just something, like, you just have to, at least once, you have to watch it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
But I guess Bleeder was critically acclaimed, but ultimately overlooked by Danish audiences.
Yeah.
Which I guess
I totally understand.
Yeah.
That's a hard movie to watch.
It is. As I guess you could say the same for Pusher too. Like, you really, really have to be in the mood, and it's kind of like you're not going to sit down and watch A Clockwork Orange every day.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that too. Especially, I can't even imagine, like, being in 96, just, like, watching that, because it's so visceral.
Yeah.
Especially if it was just given to Danish audiences. I kind of know. There's, like, the top 3 directors of that time in Denmark were him, Lars von Trier, of course,
Yeah.
and Thomas Vinterberg. Those three, of course, started